Have you ever held on to something long after it stopped giving you peace? A friendship that drained you more than it lifted you? A relationship where love felt like a memory, not a reality, or maybe a dream you kept chasing, even when deep inside you knew it no longer belonged to you. We've all been there. We cling, we fight. We tell ourselves, maybe if I try harder, maybe if I wait longer, things will change. But sometimes they don't. And yet, letting go feels like failure. Walking away feels like betrayal. We think, what if I regret it? What if I lose something I'll never find again? But here's a question. What if holding on is the real betrayal? What if by clinging to what no longer serves you, you're betraying yourself? Life has a strange way of teaching us that not everything is meant to last forever. People leave, seasons change, even the strongest trees shed their leaves when the time comes. And maybe, just maybe, strength is not in holding tighter, but in knowing when to release. This video is not about giving up. It's about understanding the philosophy of letting go. By the end, you might realize that walking away is not a sign of weakness. It might be the most courageous decision you'll ever make. So, let's walk through this journey together. Have you ever noticed how tightly we cling to things that hurt us? It could be a relationship that makes us cry more than it makes us smile. It could be a job that drains our soul but pays the bills. Or it could be a dream we've been chasing for years, even when deep inside we know it doesn't fit who we are anymore. Why do we hold on? Why is it so hard to let go? The answer for most of us is simple: control. Somewhere inside we believe that if we hold on long enough, if we fight hard enough, if we don't give up, then life will bend to our will. We think, if I just keep trying, this relationship will get better, this job will become meaningful, this pain will turn into joy. It's the illusion of control. We confuse attachment with power. We think holding tighter will save us from the pain of losing. But here's the truth, no one tells you. Sometimes the harder you hold, the more it hurts. Imagine holding a rope that's burning your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the deeper the burn. But in your mind, letting go feels even scarier because then you'll have nothing. And isn't that what we fear most? Nothingness. The empty space that comes when we finally let go. We fear the silence after the breakup. We fear the uncertainty after quitting the job. We fear the identity crisis after abandoning a dream we built our life around. So, we cling. Not because we're happy, but because we're terrified of the alternative. But here's the paradox. In trying to control life, we lose control over ourselves. We let pain dictate our days. We let fear decide our choices. And soon, we're not holding on to something out of love. We're holding on out of habit, out of fear, out of an illusion. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you stayed in a situation, not because it made you grow, but because you were afraid of starting over? Think about it. How many of your relationships, friendships, or dreams are you holding on to, not out of joy, but out of fear? Here's the harsh truth. Not everything in your life is meant to be permanent. And that's not failure, it's nature. Even the strongest trees let their leaves fall in autumn. Even the ocean knows when to pull back its waves. Life was never meant to be controlled. It was meant to be experienced. And sometimes the only way to move forward is to stop clinging to what's already slipping away. You see, letting go doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you didn't try. It doesn't mean you're weak. It simply means you value your peace more than your illusion. The illusion that one day things will magically fix themselves. The illusion that your effort alone can rewrite the story. The illusion that by holding tighter you won't lose. But ask yourself, what's the cost of clinging to this illusion? Isn't it your happiness, your peace of mind, your freedom? Sometimes, the most powerful decision you can make is not to fight harder, but to surrender, to accept that you don't need to control everything, to believe that in letting go you are not losing. You are creating space for something better to enter. And maybe, just maybe, that empty space you fear so much is not emptiness at all, it's possibility. So here's the question I want you to hold on to as we move forward. What if letting go is not the end, but the beginning? Why does walking away feel so heavy? Why does it feel like a kind of death? Think about the last time you had to let go of someone or something you loved deeply. Maybe it was a person who once felt like home. Maybe it was a dream you built your identity around. Maybe it was a place that held your memories. The moment you thought about walking away, your chest tightened, your stomach turned, your mind screamed 1,000 what-ifs. Because deep down, leaving feels like dying. But here's why. Our brain is wired to cling to what's familiar, even if it hurts us. To the mind, what is known feels safe, and what is unknown feels like danger. So when you walk away, your brain interprets it as a threat. It whispers, what if you never find love again? What if you regret this choice? What if the pain of the unknown is worse than the pain you already know? And so we stay. We choose suffering we understand over freedom we can't predict. Isn't that ironic? We'd rather sit in a burning house because we know every corner of it than step outside into a night that feels uncertain. But here's the deeper layer. Loss threatens our identity. Think about it. If you've been in a relationship for years, walking away isn't just about losing a partner. It's about losing the version of yourself that existed with them. The inside jokes, the shared routines, the way you saw yourself through their eyes, all of it suddenly vanishes. And that feels unbearable, because if you're not that person anymore, then who are you? The same goes for careers, dreams, even friendships. When you let go, it's not just about the external loss. It's about losing a part of yourself, a story you've been telling yourself for years. No wonder it feels like death, because in a way it is. It's the death of a chapter, the death of a role you once played, the death of an identity that gave you meaning. But here's the paradox. Every death creates space for rebirth. Think of the seasons. When winter strips the trees bare, it looks like loss. But hidden beneath the soil, life is preparing to bloom again. Letting go is no different. Yes, it feels like something inside you is dying. But what if that death is making space for a version of you that you haven't met yet? What if the you that exists on the other side of letting go is stronger, freer, and more alive than the version clinging to what's gone? Let me tell you a story. A man once held on to a cracked cup because it belonged to his grandmother. Even though it leaked and could no longer hold water, he refused to let it go. It's part of her, he said. But one day someone asked him, do you honor her memory by holding on to a broken cup, or by letting it go and carrying her love within you? That question pierced him, because the truth was, his grandmother's love wasn't in the cup. It was in him. And that's the point. What you lose doesn't define you. What you carry forward does. So yes, walking away will feel like death, but don't forget, death is always followed by rebirth. And maybe what feels like an ending is just life's way of clearing the path for a beginning you couldn't imagine yet. So, if you're standing at the edge, afraid to let go, I want you to ask yourself this. Are you mourning the loss of what's truly gone, or are you mourning the fear of who you might become without it? Because sometimes, the only way to meet your truest self is to let the older versions of you die. And trust me, what's waiting on the other side of that fear is not emptiness, but freedom. Have you ever noticed how much energy we spend fighting reality? We resist what is. We wrestle with should have, could have, and what if. We replay conversations in our heads, imagining different endings. We cling to the idea that if only we tried harder, maybe things would be different, and in doing so, we trap ourselves in an endless cycle of resistance. But here's the truth. What you resist persists. Think about holding a rope in a game of tug-of-war. You pull with all your strength. The other side pulls back. The harder you resist, the more painful it becomes, and your hands start to burn. But the moment you let go of the rope, the struggle ends. That's what acceptance feels like. It doesn't mean you approve of what happened. It doesn't mean you wanted it this way. It simply means you're no longer at war with reality. And that is freedom. Let me share a story. There was once a woman who carried a heavy stone in her backpack everywhere she went. She said it was her responsibility, her proof that she was strong enough to handle life. But over time, her back ached, her steps slowed, and joy became a distant memory. One day, someone asked her, "What would happen if you set the stone down?" She hesitated. "If I put it down, I won't be me anymore." But eventually, exhausted, she placed the stone on the ground. And for the first time in years, she stood tall, light, and free. That stone was her resistance, and the moment she let it go, she rediscovered herself. Isn't that what we do in life? We hold on to burdens, regret, blame, anger, guilt, thinking they define us. But in truth, they only weigh us down. Acceptance is not weakness. It is not giving up. It's recognizing that some battles were never meant to be fought, because life is not about forcing everything into place. It's about flowing with what is. Think of water. When a rock blocks its path, it doesn't complain, it doesn't resist, it simply flows around it, finding a new way forward. That is acceptance. Quiet, graceful, powerful. Now here's something you might feel deeply. We often avoid acceptance because it feels like losing control. We want certainty. We want guarantees. We want to believe that if we hold on tightly enough, we can bend life to our will. But have you noticed? The more you try to control everything, the more life slips through your fingers. Acceptance is the opposite. It's a surrender. Not to defeat, but to wisdom. It's saying, I don't have to carry everything. I don't have to fix what's broken. I don't have to make the past different. And that's where the real power lies. Because when you stop fighting reality, you reclaim the energy to create something new. Instead of drowning in what should be, you begin to live in what is. And what is the only place where peace lives. So let me ask you this. What are you still wrestling with? What rope are you still gripping, even though your hands are burning? Maybe it's time to loosen your grip. Maybe it's time to surrender, not as a sign of weakness, but as the greatest act of strength. Because acceptance doesn't mean you've lost. It means you're finally free to win in a new way. And perhaps, in that quiet surrender, you'll find something you never expected: peace. Let me ask you something personal. How do you know when it's truly time to walk away? Is it the moment when the pain becomes unbearable? Or when the silence between you and someone you love grows louder than the words you used to share? Or maybe it's when you realize that holding on has started to cost you more than letting go ever would. Timing is everything in life, and yet timing is also the hardest thing to trust. We hesitate, we second guess, we bargain with ourselves. We say, maybe tomorrow it'll change. Maybe next week I'll feel different. Maybe if I try one more time, things will go back to the way they used to be. But deep down, you already know. There's always a quiet knowing inside you, a whisper that says, this isn't where you're meant to stay. It's just that we drown it out with noise, with fear, with hope that refuses to die. Think about a tree. When autumn comes, the leaves don't cling to the branches out of fear of change. They don't argue with the wind. They simply let go, trusting that winter will pass and spring will return. That's wisdom. That's timing. And yet as humans, we often struggle with this natural rhythm. We cling to jobs that drain us, relationships that break us, habits that destroy us. Why? Because letting go feels like stepping into the unknown. And the unknown scares us more than pain we've gotten used to. But here's the thing, holding on for too long doesn't just hurt, it steals time. It keeps you stuck in a chapter that has already ended, while life waits for you to turn the page. Let me share a story. There was a man who spent years repairing an old boat. He patched the holes, repainted the surface, replaced the ropes. He poured all his energy into making it seaworthy again. But no matter what he did, the boat kept leaking. One day, exhausted and disheartened, he met an old fisherman who asked him, "Why are you trying to save something that doesn't want to be saved?" The man paused. For the first time, he realized that his love for the boat had blinded him. He had wasted years trying to fix what was never meant to last. Sometimes, the courage to walk away is not about giving up. It's about recognizing the right time to stop. So how do you know when that time has come? When staying costs you your peace of mind? When the effort feels one-sided and the return is only pain? When your growth is being held hostage by something or someone that refuses to change? When your inner voice whispers louder than your fears, saying, "You deserve more than this"? That's when. But here's the truth. Most of us avoid. Timing will never feel perfect. You'll always think, maybe I should wait a little longer. But waiting often becomes a trap, a way of postponing the inevitable. The real question is not, is it the right time? The real question is, what is this delay costing me? Because time once gone never returns. And maybe that's the deepest wisdom of letting go. It teaches us to respect the value of our own time. Not everything or everyone deserves a seat in the future you are building. Sometimes you have to close the door gently, even lovingly, not because the past was worthless, but because your future is worth so much more. So if you've been waiting for a sign, if you've been carrying the weight of indecision, torn between holding on and letting go, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the moment to trust the timing, because life is whispering to you, even now. You're allowed to walk away. So here's the question. What happens after you finally let go? Most people imagine emptiness, loss, or loneliness. But what if I told you that letting go is not the end of something? It's the beginning of everything. Think about it. When you unclench your fist, you're not just releasing what you were holding. You're also opening your hand to receive something new. That's the hidden gift of letting go. For so long we believed the story that walking away means failure. But what if walking away is the greatest act of courage you'll ever make? What if it's the doorway to a life you couldn't see because you were too busy staring at a closed door? Letting go is liberation. It's the quiet moment when your chest feels lighter because you're no longer dragging the weight of what if. It's waking up in the morning without the heaviness of a burden you weren't meant to carry. It's realizing that your value was never tied to someone else's approval, a job title, or a past version of yourself. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to grow. And sometimes growth means outgrowing places, people, and versions of yourself that no longer fit. Imagine this. You're standing in a crowded room, but no one truly sees you. You're talking, but no one truly hears you. That's what holding on to the wrong things feels like. It's suffocating. Now imagine walking outside into the fresh air, free, light, and open. That's what letting go feels like. The hardest part is the first step, but once you take it, you'll notice something strange. You'll start to see beauty in places you never noticed before. You'll discover friendships that feel genuine, work that feels meaningful, silence that feels peaceful. And maybe, just maybe, you'll rediscover yourself. The version of you that existed before the pain, before the compromise, before you started shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that were too small for you. Here's the truth. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean you erase the memories or deny the love you once had. It means you honor it for what it was and release it for what it no longer is. It's like finishing a book. You don't throw it away in anger. You place it on the shelf, grateful for the story it gave you and ready to open a new one. Life is not about clutching old chapters. It's about writing new ones. And here's the part most people don't realize. The more you let go, the freer you become. When you walk away from relationships that drain you, you make room for connections that nourish you. When you release the weight of old regrets, you create space for future joy. When you let go of fear, you allow courage to take root. Letting go is not weakness. It's strength. It's choosing your peace over your pain, your growth over your comfort, your future over your past. And when you do, something shifts inside you. You stop begging for people to stay. You stop fighting for things that were never meant for you. You stop shrinking yourself just to be loved. Instead, you start standing taller. You start trusting that what's meant for you will never require you to break yourself to keep it. You start living, really living, in alignment with who you are meant to be. So when should you walk away? When holding on hurts more than it heals. When the chapter has ended and you're just rereading the same painful lines. When your soul is whispering, there's more waiting for you. Because at the end of the day, letting go is not about loss. It's about freedom. And freedom is the soil where new beginnings grow. So, maybe today is the day you finally release the grip. Not because what you held was meaningless, but because your life deserves more meaning. And as you take that step forward, remember this. The art of living isn't about holding tighter. It's about knowing when to let go. Because only then will your hands, your heart, and your life be open enough to receive what's truly meant for you.